Hey, what's going on, guys? Sean from planningfire.com here. Just wanted to bring you the next video in the Millionaire Next Door series. Basically, I got another session of reading in and covered quite a bit more of the book. Well into part 3 at this point of the book, part 2 of the video. So just wanted to cover some of the notes, some of the more interesting facets that I found, and discuss any topics that I came across during my readings. Alright, so to start off, the average American millionaire maintains only 6% of their wealth as income tax. It's a really odd way to put it, but basically what this means is every year they're only paying taxes on essentially 6% of their wealth. And that's an astronomically low number. So if you only have income from a job, for example, and you're not doing any investing that's getting capital gains or growing and reinvesting in dividends, you're essentially paying anywhere from 28 to 45% tax on that income. And that's largely because the only way you're getting income is from your job. So depending on your tax bracket, you may be just throwing away somewhere between 28 and 45% of your income. That's a huge amount of money. So just an example, the way that they calculate this out here is if you have a 45% income tax on $200,000, that means you're getting taxed $90,000 a year, which brings your income down to around $110,000. But if you take that 6% and use that as a rule, you should also be worth $1.4 million. And hopefully the remainder of that balance, whether that's in the stock market, bonds, small businesses, real estate, hopefully that's getting you income that doesn't necessarily tie directly into this income tax bracket. One thing I found really interesting about this is the millionaires that they interviewed, though they may have huge amounts of money in their estate, whether that's real estate, small businesses, the stock market, when they know that they're reaching end of life, they start making very excessive and generous charitable contributions. That could be to religious organizations, charities, universities, colleges, other institutions that have tax advantages as well. But also they'll write maximum gift limit checks to family members, friends, whoever qualifies for those. And they may also set up tax advantage accounts for, say, college savings for grandkids, kids, and other family members. So in the book, there's this excellent example, but really what it boils down to is there's a multimillionaire they used who had something like $200 million in assets, and upon their passing, they may have to pay, or whomever the trustee of the estate is, would have to pay income taxes on that because it's considered income for that person. But what they do is they burn this down, and by the time she passed, it was only about $200,000 worth of cash that she had lying around that were subject to those taxes. So they also find ways to pass on their wealth to the next generation. So this is kind of touching upon the other video that I just recorded about realizing income. But basically, lifestyle creep is a real serious problem, and it happens to the best of us. I know 10 years ago, when I was in college, I was still living at home or in a cheap apartment, depending on when you asked, and that was fine. I was able to do everything I wanted to do. I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and I was living life. But of course, as the years went on, my salaries increased, my compensations increased, and it's become more and more expensive just to be alive. So for example, my budget, say, in college may have been $400 bucks a month. Nothing crazy going on. Now, because I own a home and I have bills to pay, it's much higher than that. So buying into or even out of your means is a great way to stay poor. It's really boiled down to the fact that lifestyle creep, if you know you're making a certain amount of money and you just continue to spend it, and you just keep spending it, you keep adding into that, you make more money, you spend more money, you're realizing all of your income every single month, you're never going to have a chance to really save or invest it. So the less income you have to realize, the more you're putting into investments, the less you're paying in income taxes on that, the better. This comes back to the tax advantage accounts. For example, your 401k, you can put $18,500 a year into that 401k. And that $18,500 is considered pre-tax dollars. And that's not even counting any match your employer may give you. So realizing as little of your income as you can is a great way to become wealthy. So in the book, they have two doctors that they use as examples. Both are specialists in their field, make really close to the top end of their income brackets at over $700,000 a year, but they both have very specific spending habits. So you have one doctor, makes $700,000 a year, owns a few boats, or rather has a few boats out on credit, a few cars out on credit, a huge mortgage, and a very expensive lifestyle. They cover this in much more detail in the book, But the most ridiculous spending point that I saw personally was a $30,000 a year clothing budget. Mind you, that wasn't actually a budget, that was a number that they tallied up from the previous year's spending, but $30,000 a year in clothes. I believe this was a husband and a wife as well as 2 or 3 children. That's an insane amount of money to be spending on clothes. And not to mention all of the other expenses that these people have. If you're leveraging credit to pay for boats or cars or houses, you're paying interest on that as well. Effectively, every dollar you're paying in interest is taking away from money that you earn. So that was the first doctor. The second doctor was much different. Lived well within his means. It's he and his wife as well as a few children, and he drives a 3-year used Mercedes-Benz. That's still a luxury car. It's a nice vehicle. However, at the time of writing, that car was about 10 years old, and he paid about $30,000 for it new. When it was new to him. So this is a nice car, but it's still well within his income range. The house and the mortgage were also much more affordable, and there was no boats or anything similar involved. So the interesting thing between the two of them is the amount of pressure that puts on somebody. So, for example, the first guy, if he loses his job, I believe he had $500,000 in savings, which sounds like a whole lot. However, given the amount of credit they have taken out, that may only last 2 to 3 months before they are completely out of cash and all of a sudden are in huge amounts of debt. So as you can imagine, that puts a lot of stress on the family and a lot of stress on the individual. The other guy, on the other hand, had something around 16 times the amount in savings and other accounts that the first guy had. So if he lost his job, he could potentially live indefinitely because they don't have as much leverage in credit and they're able to just kind of keep moving forward. Again, I highly recommend you take a look at the book, much more in detail, but that's just really one of the more interesting examples that I find that they used. Now, this is maybe one of the craziest things that I came across, and it actually surprises me, but it doesn't at the same time. So they state that there's a negative correlation between wealth and education. That blows my mind. I'm just going to repeat that one more time. There's a negative correlation between wealth and education, meaning the more educated you are, you typically tend to have less wealth. You tend to be less wealthy. There could be so many causes for that. But it's worth noting this book was re-released in 2010. So it was originally written prior to that. So 2008 had a tremendous economic impact on our country. And a big part of this was students coming out of school then had a really rough start as far as developing a career is concerned. So I wonder how much that has to do with this correlation. So if you are getting out of school and the job market's really poor, you're definitely off on the back foot when it comes to some of the more valuable years in your life. A lot of people generate huge increases in income in the first 10 years out of school. So I don't know if that has to do with it. Could it be that students today carry substantially more student loan debt than they did, say, 10, 20 years ago? The inflation rate compared to the student loan inflation rate is dramatic. Student loans are increasing faster and faster, and they're carrying more debt. So you have to pay back that debt. And we already spoke about how interest directly correlates to less income. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Also, I wonder if it's because in that bracket, in your well-educated bracket, there's less entrepreneurship. So say, for example, you have an MBA. You're going to probably go and work at a big firm right out of school, but you're still working for somebody else. And of course, that could easily turn out to be a very great opportunity for you. Plenty of MBAs make plenty of money, but in the blue-collar world, it's very easy for a random person to start up their own electrician shop, plumber shop, janitorial business, and their return on investment is going to be substantially higher. Not only do they have less debt to pay down, but they can immediately start billing at a substantial rate. So I wonder if it's entrepreneurship. Also, it could very well be different mentoring. If you have a great mentor, someone who motivates you and gives you great financial advice, gets you involved in the market early, gets you saving early, helps you avoid lifestyle creep, that could definitely go a long way as well. So all in all, after reading this next part of the book, I will say that the author's style is still great, direct to the point, well documented. It's getting a little bit wordy. I wonder if that's related to the fact that these concepts really are basic. It comes down to spend less, save more. So I'm wondering if perhaps it's a bit of padding, but the examples are nice. I think the author's tone is very engaging. It's easy to follow. And yeah, I highly recommend you check it out. that's it for part 2. I'm definitely going to be picking this back up again soon and recording part 3. Until then, take care.